So in previous lesson, you looked at the link between social class and educational achievement. In this lesson, we're going to go into the education system itself, look at some more features of the education system. Some you've come across before, like the hidden curriculum, subcultures, others like labeling and setting, which will be new to apply to this context, and see how these factors also affect social class achievement. I'm going to start just with a gap fill exercise for you. Some of these concepts you've come across in other lessons. Some are new, but you can probably work them out. So copy out this paragraph and put the key terms into the gaps as best you can. Pause the video and give that task a go. Okay, so let's look at the answers. Here's the answers. The hidden curriculum are the things students learn in school that are not taught in subjects. These include things like punctuality, respect for rules, uniform, competition. You may remember these term, the hidden curriculum, comes from Bowles and Gintis, two Marxist sociologists, and their correspondence principle. Students develop peer groups with the same values called subcultures. So this is a new term for you, subculture, but we've come across it before because they could have positive attitudes towards the hidden curriculum. Okay, they could believe that, yeah, punctuality, competition, these things are good, or they could rebel against it and have an anti-school subculture. We studied that when we did Marxism, and we looked at the research of Paul Willis and the counter-school subculture, he called it, but anti-school, counter-school subculture, they mean the same. This is a group of students who have their own norms and values, this subculture, and it goes against the school. So a positive subculture is agreeing with the school's values. A negative subculture, an anti-school or counter-school culture, goes against school's values. Then we looked at assessment. Teachers have lots of information about students, such as their age, gender, and ethnicity. They also constantly assess students' abilities in assessments and judge the behaviour using the hidden curriculum. Teachers then attach labels to students and expect students to act according to that label. This is going to be something that we'll come across in a multitude of topics, most notably the crime topic. Students then act in line with how they are treated, so teachers' labels become a self-fulfilling prophecy. In other words, if a teacher assumes, based on the data they've got about a student, that student is not going to do their homework, not achieve good grades, and is basically going to be lazy, and if they tell the student, look, you're lazy, you need to do your homework, you never do your homework, well, eventually that label is going to be how the student acts. The students are just going to say, oh, I'm lazy. Oh, I'm going to do all my homework. I might do a bit. And so the phrase self-fulfilling prophecy means you predict something is going to happen, and because you predict it, it does. Okay, I predict this student is going to get really high grades. And because I'm expecting them to get a high grade, I'm going to mark their work in such a way that I give them feedback they need to get a high grade. If they're struggling, I'm going to ask them questions, and difficult questions, to make sure they understand what they need to get a high grade. And because I'm giving them that feedback, and because I'm asking them those questions, they do get a high grade. In other words, my expectation came true, but it came true because I had that expectation. That is called a self-fulfilling prophecy, and you'll see it in loads of different areas of sociology. Okay, we spoke in previous lessons about social class and how it can affect educational achievement. Gender also affects educational achievement. So does ethnicity. Which one do you think has the greatest impact on the exam results that students get? Their gender, their ethnicity, or their social class? Pause the video and have a guess. And here is the answer. Social class is by far the most significant factor. Students of working class backgrounds do not do as well as students from middle class backgrounds. But gender is also a factor. Boys don't do as well as girls. And ethnicity, less significant, but still a factor. Certain ethnic groups do better than other ethnic groups. We're going to go into these two in more detail in other lessons. Mostly today we'll think about social class, but occasionally some of the stuff we look at will also be relevant to ethnicity and to gender. Which of these gaps do you think could be caused by subcultures, or by the hidden curriculum, or by labelling? Have a think. The hidden curriculum, these ideas that, hey, it's good to be punctual, it's good to respect authority. The pro-school subcultures that some students have, the anti-school subcultures of others, could that affect the underachievement of a particular group? They wouldn't respond as positively to that hidden curriculum. How about teacher labelling, where teachers assume someone's going to do badly, and so they do? Could teacher labelling cause the underachievement of a particular group? And if so, why? I'd like you to pause the video and copy and complete these paragraphs with your thoughts on how these hidden values within school and labelling by teachers might cause certain groups to underachieve. Okay, so I wonder what you wrote. Maybe you wrote something about how students of a working class background, they might find the hidden curriculum doesn't fit with the norms and values they're used to at home, so they're more likely to identify anti-school subcultures. If you remember the research from Paul Willis, this is exactly what he found amongst those group of working class students. But note those working class students were also the boys. Maybe it's the boys who are more likely to have an anti-school subculture, to say, hey, yeah, being macho, being tough, working with your hands, that's good, and working with your brains is bad. And maybe you think the hidden curriculum also fits better with certain ethnic groups than with others. Some people have argued the hidden curriculum can be ethnocentric. It promotes values that are respected in some cultures more than it is in other cultures. For example, conforming to a dress code. You have to do that in school, and that's not really that different for some Asian students compared to what they have at home, where they're expected to conform with a certain way of dress. On the other hand, some students in different ethnic groups, the particularistic standards they have in their family are that it's good to be creative and dye your hair and dress in different ways. They might then find the hidden curriculum that says we've all got to be uniform in how we look doesn't fit with their family, doesn't fit with their culture, and they might be more likely to adopt an anti-school subculture. How about teacher labelling? Are teachers going to assume that someone from a working class background isn't going to do as well, and therefore they don't push them as much? Might they make the same assumption about boys or about students of particular ethnic groups? And could these things affect multiple factors? Could a teacher's label affect someone who's a working class and boy and white British? That's what Paul Willis found. White British working class boys were the ones who had the anti-school subculture. Maybe because their teachers expected them to and labelled them. Okay. Something else that might happen in school that affects how students do. You need to know these key terms. So I'm just going to pause the video. In a moment, you can copy and complete the table. And please don't draw out the table and then try and write the words small in the box. Please write everything out nice and neatly and then draw the line for the next bit of the table. Okay, you need to know these three key terms then. Streaming. That is when you divide students into different bands according to their ability, which they stay in for all subjects. Think about how at nights we have X band and Y band. Whichever band you're in, that determines which class you go in, because that's how the timetable is constructed. X band and Y band have different lessons at different times. Now at nights, X and Y is based on your option choices and whether you do a language and some other things. But in some schools, those streams are based on ability. They just divide all the high ability into one stream, maybe middle or lower ability into a different stream. That is different from setting. Setting is where you divide students into different classes based on their ability in that subject. So you might have set 1 maths, set 2 maths, set 3 maths. Okay? And we have setting at nights. We have it within the stream. So you'll have X band, set 1, X band, set 2, X band, set 3. The setting 1, 2, and 3 is based on the subjects, that's setting. Streaming, if that was done on your ability, but then it affected the whole timetable, you'd be stuck in that stream for all subjects. So even if you're in the low stream, even if you happen to be good at a particular subject, you'd still be in the low stream because it affects everything. Setting is different for each subject. You can be in set 1 maths, but set 3 English and set 2 science based on your ability in that subject. Mixed ability teaching, well, that's where students of all abilities are in the same class, and we have that at nights as well. Sociology is a great example, and some of the other subjects too. Everyone just learns together. Your task then, all the advantages and disadvantages of each way of grouping students. Pause the video and come up with as many as you can in a list. Off you go. Okay, be interesting to see with what you came up with. Generally, the advantages of setting and streaming students is that if you've got students of the same ability together, then the work can be pitched at that level. So all of the strongest students in a subject all in the same class, and you can really stretch them by giving them loads of complicated stuff. And the other students can focus on becoming really strong in the core materials and therefore hit their own target grades. And maybe weaker students can get extra support that they're going to need that other students wouldn't need and can be focused in their lesson. That's the advantage, at least in theory. Doesn't always work though. Disadvantage of streaming is that you might not be in the right group for your ability in that particular subject. Maybe you're the best at maths, but you're terrible at everything else, so you end up in the bottom stream, and then you can't be in the best class for maths. And also, there's some research that shows that actually weaker students do better when they're alongside strong students and they can learn with them and from them. And actually, one of the best learning activities you can do is try and explain what you've learned to someone else. So actually being in a mixed ability class might help the more able students as well. So there's advantages to mixed ability classes. Disadvantages, it is harder for the teacher sometimes. Maybe they need to set different work for different students. Okay. Another advantage of mixed ability is we're all together. If one of the functions of education is to achieve social cohesion, then keeping everyone together, mixed ability, learning in groups, helps show that, hey, it doesn't matter what your ability is, we're all in this together, we're all a class working hard together, trying to achieve. Start dividing people into different groups, you're sending a dividing message. You guys are different, and that is not bringing everybody together. So those are some of the advantages and disadvantages. You need to know these terms. In particular, please don't mix up streaming and setting. Students often do, but you need to know the distinctions. Okay, some work for you then. How do you think these different things that happen in school can link to labelling and anti-school subcultures? Could streaming or setting or mixed ability contribute to labelling? And if so, explain why. Could it contribute to anti-school subcultures? And if so, explain why. And try and give some examples. I'll leave you to pause the video and complete that task. Copy and complete the sentences, please. Okay, let's see what you came up with. Generally, setting and streaming can contribute to labelling because students get labelled depending on which set or which stream they are in. If student is in the top stream, the teacher might assume they are high ability and challenge them. Actually, they might not be very good in that particular subject, but the teacher just makes assumption and applies a label because they're in that stream. Similarly with setting, particularly the bottom set might get labelled. Of course, they didn't do that homework, they're a bottom set. So the teacher never chases them to do their homework, never calls their parents, never sets detentions. Of course the students aren't going to do their homework. It's not because they're in the bottom set, it's just because the teacher is letting them get away with it. That's labelling. If the teacher doesn't let the top set get away with it, then that is the teacher treating them differently, and that's labelling. They can also cause anti-school subcultures as well. No one likes being in the bottom stream, no one likes being in the top set, and if you don't believe the school believe in you, then hey, why should you believe in the school and the school's values? I'm maybe no good at maths, no good at English, but hey, I'm brilliant at bullying. I'm brilliant at hitting people. I'm the toughest guy on the playground. I can be the best of that instead. Someone develops that anti-school subculture, well, that might partly be because they were put in a low set or a low stream and they were told before they even given the work to do, you're not going to be very good at this. And that is demotivating for students. Lots of ideas, lots of thoughts, lots of conceptions. Are any of them true? Do they actually affect student achievement? We are sociologists, and we do not just go with what we reckon is true, but we conduct research. And the main research method you've learnt about so far this year has been observations. So we're going to look at Ball. He conducted observations in a primary school. He was there over 3 years. And at the start, he noticed that all students had a pro-school subculture. They all believed in the school's norms and values. All thought it was a good thing to work hard, do well, and get high grades. But then the school divided them up. They put some of the students into mixed ability classes. And after 3 years, the students in the mixed ability classes still had a pro-school culture. The other half of their year, they put into 3 bands. So this is streaming, a top band, a middle band, and a lower band. And they had all their lessons with people in the same band based on their ability. And Ball observed them. And then at the end of 3 years, he did some interviews with the teachers. I'm going to give you some comments of what the teachers said. Can you identify whether these teachers were talking about band 1, band 2, which is the middle, or band 3, the lowest ability band? So here's the first one. Rowdy and lazy. That's a line from one of the teachers' interviews. Was that teacher being interviewed about the top band, the middle band, or the bottom band? Copy the table out, band 1, band 2, band 3, pause the video and copy rowdy and lazy into the band you think that comment goes. Okay, next one is bright, alert, and enthusiastic. Pause the video and put that in the right place. Is low ability. Pause the video and match that to one of the bands. Lacks concentration. Where do you think the teacher put that? Lacks a mature view of education. Can concentrate. Pause and put that in the right place. A waste of time. Which band was the teacher talking about there? Produces neat work. Who was that? Loses and forgets books. Cannot take part in discussions. Has common sense. Put that in the right band. Pause the video and write down not up to much academically next to one of your bands, top, middle, or bottom. Friendly. Who did the teachers think was friendly? Emotionally unstable. I don't know about you, but I think that's a pretty horrific thing for a teacher to say about any student, let alone a whole group of students. One of the teachers Ball interviewed said that about their students. Which band do you think they were talking about? And maladjusted. That's a really offensive term. Mal is French for bad. Maladjusted means badly adjusted, not adjusted at all to society. Remember, these were students at the beginning of the year, the 3 years, had a pro-school subculture, and now they're poorly adjusted to their society. Which group of students was the teacher talking about when they said that in their interview with Ball? Okay, there's the answers. You probably got some of these to do with band 1 being bright and alert. Okay, maybe you thought things like friendly and neatness were more band 2, but no, that was all band 1. Band 2, the middle ones, well, they were pretty negative actually. Cannot take part in discussions. Not just that they don't want to, but they can't. They're not able to. Lacking concentration, not up to much. There's the teacher labelling them to not do very well. And the band 3 ones, they're pretty offensive, to be honest. A waste of time. It's not worth my time to educate this young person to help them achieve their best because they're in band 3. An actual teacher said that to Ball in an interview at this primary school. What do you think that tells us about the way they were teaching them? If at the end of 3 years, band 1 students were getting the highest marks in assessment, well, yeah, maybe it's because the smartest students were put in band 1 in the first place. But you guys know, whoever gets the highest grade 1 year doesn't necessarily get the highest grade the following year or 3 years later. Some of you who got the highest grades in year 6 in primary school aren't getting the highest grades now because some people have been working hard for 4 years and have overtaken others. And just how it goes. These students in band 3, they're not doing very well. Well, maybe it's because the weakest students are in band 3. But maybe it's because the teacher thinks they're a waste of time. How much effort do you think the teacher's putting into those lessons? Maybe the teacher thinks they're poorly adjusted. Maybe that's why they're not getting very high grades. So here's the debate. Do students do better in sets or in mixed ability classes? And this is a good one because almost everyone who's been in a school has experienced both. So loads of people have an opinion. If you ask me, I can answer this as a teacher, but I can also think back to my own experience in school. Did I prefer being in a set? Did I prefer being in a mixed ability class? If you can discuss this with other people who study sociology, then great. But you can discuss this with anyone in your family who's ever been in a school. What do they think is better? What are their reasons? Have a conversation. Have a debate. Pause the video, even if all you do is write down thoughts for one side or the other for yourself. Okay then. Now I'm going to do some exam questions. You knew it was coming, so here you go. And some questions that ask you about Ball's research. Question 1, identify one research method used by Ball in item A. Now, it doesn't actually tell you exactly, but you can infer it. You can work it out from what you're told. What type of observation did he use? Question 2, give one weakness of the research mentioned in item A. So for this question by itself, you wouldn't have to state what the research method was, but you would have to have worked it out in order to identify the research. Okay, think about whether you can generalize from that research, and think about, is it valid or is it reliable? From what you've learned, anytime you get any research method, you should know that method is reliable or that method is valid. So 2 marks for that one. And give one other explanation for the differences mentioned in item A. In other words, there will be some differences in the data here. There will be some reasons put forward from what Ball was studying, but this asks for another explanation. Think back to previous lessons on causes of educational underachievement and pick a different explanation. Okay, it's 4 marks, 3 marks for your P paragraph, 1 mark for being able to link it to item A. And there's an extension there for you too. Okay, off you go with those questions. Give yourself about 8 minutes. Pause the video and try the exam questions. Okay, so what research method did he use? He used observations of the students. He observed them having a pro-school culture. He observed the behaviour of the students, hoping you can infer from that these were non-participant observations. Ball did not join in with the class in the primary school and pretend he was a primary school student. Okay, so can you identify that it was non-participant observation? One weakness, if it's non-participant observation, it isn't valid. He doesn't know what it means to the students. Do the students think that it's being in that set that caused them to have that negative attitude? Do the students recognize these labels? Do they think they're a waste of time? Do they think they're bright and alert? He doesn't know because he didn't get into the students' shoes, get into their point of view. So it's not valid research. It's not qualitative. Okay, can you generalize about all students based on this one school? Maybe it's just this one school that's got a problem, not the whole educational system. So it's not representative. And one other explanation for the differences, well, maybe these students are bright and alert and these are a waste of time because of external factors, factors outside of school. Maybe they're more likely to come from middle class backgrounds. That's why they're doing well in school, because their parents have got that cultural capital. Maybe the students in band 3 are doing badly in school because their parents aren't interested in education. Maybe their material deprivation is causing a problem. And that's why they're not doing as well, and why their teachers think that they're a waste of time, because the student thinks school's a waste of time. So you could have used any of those other explanations. 3 marks for writing a P paragraph about them. Okay, 1 for linking it to here. So use language like bright, a waste of time, pro-school culture. What do you think if we did a similar study with Year 7 students at nights? If we put half of them into mixed ability classes and half into streams and then let them go, after a year or 3, would we find that the students in the streams were being labelled by their teachers, whereas the mixed ability students all still had a positive attitude to school? Do you see that in your own lessons? Some of you have mixed ability classes, some have classes where you are set. What do you think? The last question there, I said, as well as doing internal things within school, you could have written about external factors outside of school, material deprivation, cultural capital, parental interest, language, everything you learnt about in the last lesson. So you need to know these 2 key terms, external factors and internal factors. External factors outside of school, little the school can do about them really. School can't control whether your parents made you read when you were 3, whether your parents can afford to buy you a computer, whether your parents care about education. Internal factors, now schools have a lot of control over these. Okay, do we set, do we stream, do we teach a mixed ability? Do we allow independent schools in our education system, or do we ban them? What do we put in the formal curriculum? What do we put in the hidden curriculum? Do we make you line up? What are the rules that we have? Schools control their rules. Labelling by teachers, that's teachers who are doing the labelling. Okay, and those can then lead to anti-school subcultures. Pause the video and write down these 2 lists, please. Okay, now you've got those lists. Think about them. Which is more significant? Primary socialisation or secondary socialisation? You should recognise this term. Primary socialisation is in the family. Secondary socialisation is at school. So where do you learn norms and values, the things you think are important, things you think are right or wrong? Do you follow the values of your family or the values you've been taught in school more? And then leading on from there, what do you think is more important in your educational attainment? Those external factors, what your parents can do to support your education, or the internal factors, what your school does, what set they put you in, what curriculum they give you, what your teachers think of you. What's more important? How much your parents care about you doing well? How much your teachers care about you doing well? Pause the video and answer those two questions. In fact, copy and complete this to help you. Internal or external factors are more significant in underachievement amongst working class students. Which of these factors do you think is most significant? And let's make this a P paragraph. For example, and this means that. So, do you think the external factors are more important or the internal factors are more important? Whichever one you think is more important, write it here, give an example, and give an explanation. And as an extension, what should the government do to reduce the problem? Remember, if we know what the cause is, then we know what the solution is. If the problems are caused by things in school, the solutions can be found by the government getting involved in schools, stopping teachers labelling, telling schools whether to use mixed ability classes or sets. If problems are about external factors outside of school, then the government needs to intervene there. If people can't afford things they need, the government could provide them for free. If it's about access to things like museums, the government can make those free. They are all free in London, for example, to try and reduce the problem of cultural capital. So, pause the video, copy and complete that to fill in the paragraph. And then this question of which is more important, well, that now comes into your essay. How far do sociologists agree socialisation in the home is the primary factor affecting educational achievement? Well, that would be those external factors. Cultural socialisation you get in the home. Do your parents value education? Do they have the skills to help you with your homework? Do they speak in the same style that exams are written in so you're familiar with it? Or are there other factors? Maybe material deprivation, or maybe the factors we've studied in today's lesson. Setting, labelling. This affects your achievement. What set your teachers put you in, how your teachers think of you, that affects how well you're going to do. Whether the hidden curriculum supports your learning, or whether you end up in an anti-school subculture with negative attitudes to school. That's the most important thing. Perhaps think about your classes. The students who do least well. Is it the ones who've got the least ability or the poorest parents? Or is it the ones that have a really negative attitude to school? So that will be how you structure your essay. Firstly, secondly, explain how the external factors can affect your educational attainment. On the other hand, explain how the internal factors can affect your educational attainment. And remember, you must give a conclusion. Pause the video, plan it, and then give yourself 15, 12 minutes to write up the essay. Okay, that concludes the lesson. Congratulations.